Democratic Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey and his wife have been indicted by federal prosecutors, and the initial public response indicates once again that it's in fact the progressive left and Democrats, not the progressive right and Republicans, that are truly the party of accountability, law, and order. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, so again, as a quick reminder, I am still recovering from COVID, so if I sound off, if I make any weird noises, I apologize. Just please bear with me. We kind of have a big deal here, all right? So we rail on this channel about the litany of instances of Republican Party corruption, and to be sure, the GOP is infinitely worse with respect to criminality and corruption than the Democratic Party. But the Democratic Party is hardly spotless. And if you have any doubts about that, look no further than a major story which broke today, which is the fact that one of the most powerful Democratic senators, Bob Menendez of New Jersey, has been indicted, along with his wife, on like 3 counts of bribery-related crimes. Now, CNN is going to do a quick recap of the most important high-level facts, and then we will break this down, what it means for the current political landscape, and how even this ironically proves that once again it's the progressive left and Democrats, which are the party again of accountability, law, and order. But we'll let CNN take it away from here.
He's being charged with corruption-related charges for the second time in 10 years. He was charged, indicted before, and there was a hung jury, and now he's being charged again for something completely different. Let's get right to Kara Scannell for the details on this. Kara, what are you learning?
Yeah, John, so the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Lower Manhattan has announced that they have brought bribery charges against Senator Menendez and his wife. Now, according to the prosecutor's office, that they allege that Menendez's wife had received hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes that they had then used to help 3 New Jersey businessmen and the government of Egypt. This investigation has been going on for several years, and sources have told CNN that they have sent out rings of subpoenas to people seeking information about some of these businessmen and these relationships. Now, one of the businessmen is someone who has known Menendez's wife for a long time. He is someone that had obtained the exclusive right to export and certify halal meat to Egypt. That has been a focus of this investigation. And another one of the businessmen is a New Jersey developer, and prosecutors were asking questions about him, his communications with the senator and his wife. So as you said, though, this is the second time in 10 years that Senator Menendez has been charged with bribery and corruption. The first time he did go to trial to fight those charges, it ended in a mistrial, and then the judge had thrown out some of the remaining charges, and the Department of Justice decided not to retry him.
What is there more to say? Well, as a reminder, again, Bob Menendez is one of 51 members of the Democratic caucus in the U.S. Senate. We still have control of the Senate nominally, but it's thanks to razor-slim margins and the support of 3 independent senators, including, ironically, Kyrsten Sinema. The others are Angus King and Bernie Sanders. So we have 48 Democratic senators, 3 independents who caucus with us, which give us a 51-seat majority. Razor thin margins. And here we have one of the most powerful Democratic senators, the leader, the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which is a very prominent, illustrious position in the U.S. Senate. And he's been charged with conspiracy to commit bribery, conspiracy to commit fraud, conspiracy to commit extortion in the sums of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Axios breaks it down a bit more. The bribes included cash, gold, payments towards a home mortgage, compensation for a low or no-show job, a luxury vehicle, and other things of value. I think even in the actual indictment, of course, they released a PDF. They found like wads of cash stuffed in the lining of various jackets and suits, worn by Menendez. This is, it's cartoon stuff. This is something that you would see in some sort of low-budget crime movie. That's as gangster as it gets. Prosecutors allege that Menendez promised to and did use his influence and power to breach his official duty in ways that benefited the government of Egypt. So it's not just that he, engaged corruptly to benefit domestic businessmen. He also did it to benefit a foreign country. It's incredibly serious allegations. The fact that he was indicted once before, about 8, 9, 10 years ago, and he was not exonerated. As CNN points out, he wasn't exonerated or acquitted. He benefited from a hung jury, and that's about it. And these charges are separate issues. It's not like it's being relitigated. Bob Menendez is entitled to the legal presumption of innocence, but for my money, I mean, he reeks of corruption. And here's the thing. It's not just for my money. It's also for the money of other, much more prominent, I was about to say other prominent, but much more prominent Democratic surrogates, Democratic sympathizers, Democratic-aligned influencers, progressives, leftists, liberals, people who are outspokenly supportive of the Democratic Party. They have reacted with enormous hostility to what Menendez has done. Okay, so just if you're curious, go on Twitter and do a search for Menendez, and what you'll find is people from Victor Shi, Ron Filipowski, Brett Meiselas, and the Midas Touch, Mueller, She Wrote, Jack Hopkins, Will Stanel, Brooklyn Dad Defiant, Lawrence O'Donnell, etc. And so, Mehdi Hassan, people in the leftist mainstream and people, again, who are left-leaning / liberal influencers, they are calling this out. They're demanding that Bob Menendez resign. Some are saying that if he doesn't resign, he should be expelled by the Senate. The left takes this sort of accountability seriously compared to the right. And that's the other point I want to get at. When Republican officials and Republican, like Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, Donald Trump, Peter Navarro, Oliver Stone, Roger Stone, others in the Republican Party orbit, the Republican Party closes ranks around that person. George Santos, who was reviled by his own constituents, is being protected by congressional leadership because they need his votes. And so many Republican influencers and commentators are ignoring George Santos, certainly not calling on him to resign or to be expelled, because they put power over principle. And again, I'll remind you, we have a razor-thin majority in the Senate. We need every damn vote we possibly can. We're up against a bad faith authoritarian cult of personality, both in the Senate and also in the House of Representatives, which nominally controls the House of Representatives, which, as we speak, is currently heading the government towards an unnecessary shutdown and trying to impeach our Democratic president, Joe Biden, as we head into an election year. The stakes could not be higher, and yet, some of the most politically efficacious and outspoken, again, commentators are calling for Menendez, a Democrat, to resign in disgrace. And many are calling on him to be expelled by Democratic Majority Leader Chuck Schumer if Menendez won't resign himself. The stark contrast could not be more stark. When push comes to shove, Republicans pursue power over principle. When push comes to shove, Democrats, for all their faults, will much more closely hew to principle, even at their own short-term political detriment, okay? So if you're an independent or if you're centrist, if you're somebody watching, I want you to pay attention to this, because I would not be surprised if more prominent Democratic officials start speaking out and urge Menendez to resign. President Biden urged former Democratic governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, to resign in disgrace. Al Franken, the former Democratic senator, I believe, of Michigan or Missouri, I think it was Michigan, he was urged to resign in disgrace after allegations of inappropriate conduct. I would not be surprised if the case was here for Bob Menendez. I'd be shocked if it wasn't the case. This is a stark contrast, folks, to how Republicans and prominent conservatives treat principle when it comes to holding one of their own accountable. They flatly reject the idea that a Republican can ever engage in acts of corruption, that a Republican can ever engage in acts of criminality. They will close ranks. No. It's dirty prosecution. It's weaponization of the Department of Justice. You can't go after a Republican. A Republican, by definition, is incapable of committing crime. Democrats know better, even when it comes to their own party. And they hold members of their party to the same standards by which they hold their opposition. Republicans do not do that. At the end of the day, no matter what happens with Bob Menendez, again, he's entitled to the legal presumption of innocence, but it sounds like he's corrupt as hell, and he is certainly not becoming of a high-ranking U.S. official. He should resign, and he should perhaps be expelled if he will not resign. I think I would support that as well. But no matter what happens, it is simply a fact that right out the gate, if you're looking for a party that values principle at least as much as power, I would argue more. If you're looking for a party that tries to be consistent with its values, even at its own short-term cost, basically, if you're looking for the party of moral superiority and integrity, I hate to be blunt, but the fact of the matter is the Democratic Party is where you should be looking, because the Republican Party would never have the courage or moral fortitude to do what Democrats are doing right now with one of their own.